Hi, everyone. Today we're in conversation with Jason Flaherty, who is a father, a husband, and a business owner. And I got to know him through his attorney world. And I'm so excited to share that he has been named as a Texas super lawyer as seen in Texas Monthly. And he has also served as a president on estate planning and probate section of Austin Bar Association. Welcome to the conversation, Jason. So excited to have you today.
A pleasure to be here, Rosie. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, Jason, for our listeners who don't know you yet, could you share a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you become an expert in probate planning and estate planning? And how was your journey from Kansas to Austin, Texas?
Well, you said expert, but I won't reject it. So I appreciate it.
Sure.
I grew up in Kansas and graduated with an accounting degree from the University of Kansas. And I worked in finance as a CPA for about 6.5 years after I graduated. And during that time, I met my wife. And shortly after we got married, I told her that I wanted to go to law school and quit my job and sell our house and move to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And we did all of that, and it was exciting and it was fun. And how we got to Austin was quite literally a roadmap. The two of us as newlyweds were sitting at our kitchen table in Chicago with a roadmap of the United States. And we discussed cities from the East Coast, worked our way across the map to the West Coast to talk about where we might like to live after I graduated.
How exciting!
Austin was at the top of the list, even though neither one of us had ever been before.
Were you guys ever been before in Texas?
Well, maybe a couple of spring breaks in college or something, but other than that, no, we really didn't spend any time here. And we decided to stay, even though when we came down for my first summer clerkship with a law firm, when we left Chicago, it was 43 degrees, and the next day when we arrived in Austin, it was 103 degrees. But
wow, well, it seems like you're clearly the person who doesn't mind exploring the unknown. So clearly, so how did we end up where we are today? Like, you have such a wealth of knowledge. So how did we arrive here?
Well, it wasn't entirely planned, I suppose, but it's worked out fairly well. I started my career at a large general service law firm where I was working in the tax and estate planning groups. Over time, my focus shifted mostly toward trusts and estates, but still with an emphasis on tax, especially tax planning for estate and gift and wealth transfer planning.
Yes.
Work with 3 other colleagues that we've worked together for quite some time. We enjoy working together, and now I have my own law firm and get to do things just the way I like to do them.
Just like you do it. Perfect. Awesome. Now, the reason I'm here today is because from our conversation that we had at our personal level, it is evident that having the right people and knowing the right people who can assist us in different phases of our life, real estate, tax planning, estate planning, we don't really think about it until the day comes and we're like, okay, hold on, I didn't do any of it. So understanding the criticality of it, I would love to understand from your perspective, when we chose to acquire our expertise or specialize in a certain field, what excited you most about it? Like, how did you choose estate planning and tax planning area out of all the different things? And I heard something about private aircraft planning as well on your resume. So I would love to hear about it. How did that happen?
Well, a lot of it grew out of that I was an undergrad and accounting major and that I had my CPA. And so the law firms that I was interviewing with, many of them were interested in having me work within their tax groups. During law school, I wasn't certain that that's what I wanted to do. I was thinking about a career in securities instead.
Okay.
But I graduated law school in 2002. And if you recall, there was a bit of a financial crisis that happened in the early 2000s, the dot-com sort of
boom. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the law firms that had corporate and securities lawyers and that were hiring them out of law school were suddenly laying off those lawyers and rescinding offers. And and tax started to sound a lot more stable and secure. And I'm a naturally risk averse person, and so I decided that's what I should do and turned my focus to tax. While I was still in law school, the law firm that I had accepted a job with had an opening in their trust and estates group and asked if I would be willing to do both.
Hmm.
And the truth of the matter was, I was willing to do whatever they asked me to do, but I absolutely was willing to do both. And that's how I ended up doing trusts and estates. Part of what drew me to it
Hmm.
was my finance background and doing uh, spreadsheets and forecasts and being able to model analytically for clients how their estate planning transactions could
Hmm.
work and how they could turn out. And I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed planning to avoid tax. It just was fun for me. Still
Yeah,
it.
they often say, as I can hear in your conversation, Jason, a penny saved is a penny earned. So if you're able to save what is ours through just proper guidance and planning, it's almost equal to earnings. It seems like you have
Well,
something to share. Yeah,
I I think there's, in many cases, no better return on an investment than good professional advice. You know,
yeah.
I can't tell you how many times, how many dozens, hundreds of times where I've been working with clients and my bill has been relatively modest. It might only be a few $1,000s, but
Hmm.
the planning has saved them millions.
Millions, yeah. And Jason, I'm not surprised. How I got to know you is through my real estate world, and naturally, we come across people with different situations, and probate has been a big one where I saw lots people lose thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity just because they were unaware of what to do next. You know, people probably feel uncertain, confused, little intimidated with the process, and almost like a full-time second job. And a little assistance and nudge along, and if you're in touch with the right professional, can elevate all the burden. And the same process that's going to be hefty and difficult could be a good experience that you can recommend to other people as well. So, Jason, going back, you have such a vast variety of people who come to you with different circumstances, especially in probate with what's happening in COVID and how things are changing and how the accessibility of the court is. Um, what do you think? How do you think it has impacted the legal proceedings? If a family is going through a probate and they want to get started and they know you're available, what are the things they should be prepared for?
So, Rosie, are you asking specifically during COVID and how
Yeah,
things have
COVID
changed?
especially, and then we can talk about in general terms of preparation afterwards.
So, and one of the kind of silver linings of COVID is that we've actually been able to learn how to work remotely
Yes.
effectively. And here I am in my home office right now, um, and uh, and that's turned out to be, somewhat of a blessing. Being able to spend more time with family and
Mm-hmm.
not not commute to the office. When
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the legal proceedings, the courts, for the most part, are open, but it's by mostly by video conference, mostly
Yep.
by Zoom, and that's turned out to be a blessing. I had two hearings on Wednesday
Mm-hmm.
in in Houston, and,
Wow.
and I was here in Austin, and I had three witnesses. Two of them were in San Antonio, and one of them was in Dallas. And so I've got several probate proceedings going on in Harris County. I've got probate proceedings going on in Jones County, Karnes County, Milam County. I've
Wow.
been
So
doing
for
all,
everybody listening out there, you work all over Texas because a lot of people get confused in counties, right? It seems like you have access to everything in Texas.
we can do every single county in Texas.
Fantastic.
And hopefully the courts are, even after coronavirus, will continue to give us the option of doing these video conferences. Like a probate that I just started this morning was for, unfortunately, someone who died of COVID in Austin.
Oh,
But the executor lives in West Texas,
oh wow.
and she and I were able to talk like this. And
Mhm.
when we have the hearing, she'll be able to stay in West Texas and testify at the hearing from West Texas.
Wow. Wow. This is very important that people understand that because a lot of people are under the impression that the whole process is stopped. And it's amazing to me, by speaking with professionals like you, finding out people who are proactive, are tech savvy, are innovative, have figured their way out and are moving the process forward at a pretty good pace with all the slowdown that we're experiencing.
Oh,
So it's amazing to hear that. Now, if somebody is going through a probate process, Jason, and what should be the very first thing that they can instantaneously start doing before making the first phone call to you?
well, they need to know if they need to find out if there's a will or not,
Okay.
and they need to find out if there's an original copy of the will.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we need to know if we're dealing with someone who died testate, meaning they
Mm-hmm.
had a will,
Mm-hmm.
or if we're dealing with someone who died intestate, meaning they did not have a will.
Did not have a will. Mm-hmm.
And if there was a will, it's very important for us to know whether we have an original of the will, because
Original.
it's possible to probate a copy of a will, but there's some more steps involved.
There's some more steps involved. Okay,
Uh,
very good. So making sure that there's a will or not, and then reaching out to you and start the proceedings soon after that, once you have analyzed their current situation.
right,
Good.
right.
So Jason, we all have a variety of experiences with different cases. Looking back, what would you say has been the smoothest ride for clients? In what situations you have found, like when clients show up like this and they prepared like this, they have the easiest ride and they're able to navigate this process with ease and they are happy we are done. On
Yeah, sure.
contrast, right? Sometimes I'm sure it's going to be probably for you to hard to talk about that, but I would love to know where things go wrong sometimes.
So the easiest cases are the ones where there was a will and we have the original copy of a will,
Mm-hmm.
we have a death certificate,
Mm-hmm.
and the client is able to get me all of those things. During coronavirus, the preference is that they scan those documents and email them to me, and then the client will deliver the original to the court.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then if the client is organized, you
Mm-hmm.
know, can provide a list of all of the decedent's assets and debts,
Mm-hmm.
um, is responsive. So when we ask for information or ask for a meeting or an appointment, they're able to do that with us.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the best.
Those are the best ones.
Those go smoothly. It doesn't take long. We can always encounter trouble, and you hear stories about probates that lasted for years, and I've personally been involved in some that have lasted years, but those are the exception. And if it's a well-drafted will, and if the family is organized and provides the information to the attorney, it should go quickly and smoothly.
It should go quickly and smoothly. I heard you mention that at times it has taken years. What goes southways that it takes years? Like, I'm very curious to find out.
Well, of course, there's things like will contests. Sometimes people will uh, contest whether the will is valid because of maybe undue influence or lack of
Mm-hmm.
capacity, or maybe there was some defect in the will. The will was improperly drafted and is not a valid will.
Yeah.
Um, so those can last for years. Sometimes it's because of the complexity of the estate. There might be assets that are hard to sell or hard to value.
Mm-hmm.
For large estates, it could mean that it could be because there was an estate tax return that needed to be filed, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
the return was audited by the IRS, and now that needs to be dealt with. And those estate tax audits and examinations, those themselves can last several years.
Several years. Okay. So anytime there's complexity with the ownership and the number of people involved, it can get more difficult, and especially when there is IRS involved with the taxation and everything.
Yeah, and you asked earlier about what are some of the problems.
Yeah.
A problem can be when the person who's in possession of the will, maybe it's the named executor, maybe it's the named surviving, maybe it's the
Mm-hmm.
surviving spouse,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't act quickly to engage an attorney or to consult an attorney. In Texas, we have a fairly liberal rule about the time to probate a will. In Texas, you have 4 years from the date of death to have the will admitted to probate.
Hmm.
Um, There are circumstances under which it can be admitted to probate as what's called a muniment only after
Mm-hmm.
4 years,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not a full probate.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not always available. It's only available in some situations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Other states, you have to act much more quickly. Kansas, for example, where I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
a will has to be filed for probate within 6 months of the date of death.
Whoa, that's pretty accelerated compared to Texas. Yeah, you
Yeah,
said something very important there, Jason. You mentioned that in Texas the rules are very liberal. Matter of fact, if somebody doesn't has an uncontested will, they can actually go through muniment of the will, which is a portion of the probate process, not the full probate, right? And does it cost much differently than the full probate, or how does that work?
it's a little bit different cost wise.
Oh,
It's not always a substantial cost savings, but it's
okay.
usually some.
Okay.
So a regular probate is when a will is admitted to probate,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's an executor that's appointed by the court, and
Mm-hmm.
they're granted what are called letters testamentary.
Letter of testamentary. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and when that executor is appointed with the letters testamentary,
Mm-hmm.
if it's an independent administration, which most are,
Mm-hmm.
dependent administrations are very rare. So
Mm-hmm.
if the will permits the independent administration, or if all of the heirs or beneficiaries agree,
Mm-hmm.
then the executor now has the power to deal with the decedent's assets, whether that's their real property like their house, or whether that's their personal property like bank accounts. So that's,
Mm-hmm.
for the bank accounts in the name of the deceased, it's the executor who goes to the bank,
Mm-hmm.
presents the letters testamentary,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bank can give them the assets from that account. In Texas, in independent administration, there is virtually no court supervision. Well, there's a short hearing that lasts just a few minutes to get appointed, assuming there's
Mm-hmm.
no contest or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, the executor never has to go to the court and ask for permission to do anything. The,
Wow.
the executor has the power to do everything without the permission of the court. The only thing the executor is required to do after appointment is to prepare an inventory,
Mm-hmm.
give notice to the beneficiaries,
Mm-hmm.
give notice to the creditors, and that's it.
That's it. Okay, so it can be shortcutted, but it just adds more notices to verify that there is no contest.
Right.
Got it. Got
It,
it.
and it saves clients a lot of money compared to other jurisdictions, other states where
Yes.
probates are under the supervision of the court.
Supervision.
Um,
Yeah.
so in terms of the total cost,
Mm-hmm.
in Texas, it depends to some extent on what the executor is going to be able to do on their own without the assistance of counsel, without their attorney's help.
Mm-hmm.
And for some clients, they're able to do a lot of things on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Other clients prefer to have it done for them. And so obviously that costs a little bit more, but it's often up to them how they do it.
Yeah, and probate once done kind of handles everything. Once you have letter of testamentary, if you have real estate, you have other financial institutions to handle. It sounds like from your conversation that is the ultimate way to do. So you don't have to come back and realize, I wish I had done the probate to handle all of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Rosie, for point. Yeah, I didn't explain the difference with the muniment. So a will can also be admitted to probate as a muniment of title, meaning that on the face of the will, it says who all of the beneficiaries are. Like it
Mm-hmm.
says, I leave all of my property to my wife,
Yes.
and it names her name, all of my property to Mary Flaherty, my wife.
Yes.
That will on its face says who gets everything. And so if that will were admitted to probate, and then it as a muniment only, and then if that certified copy of the will is then filed in the real property records, with what we call the official public records in Texas,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that now effectively transfers title of the real estate from the deceased to the beneficiary named in the will. But sometimes wills aren't clear on their face who gets everything. The
Mm-hmm.
will says, if the will says I give $10,000 to each of my 5 nieces,
Mm-hmm.
and then I give everything else to my wife.
Okay.
that's not a will that I would ordinarily want to file as a muniment
Mm-hmm.
only,
Mm-hmm.
because now if we need to sell any real estate, the
Mm-hmm.
five nieces will need to sign off in addition to the surviving
Wow.
spouse.
Okay. Wow. Mm-hmm. Got it. So that is a good consultation to have with you, so they can decide their choices, because they will understand their family structure and will be able to present those options to you, and you can help them guide. That's awesome. Fantastic. Now, Jason, when you mentioned briefly in the beginning, when people are about to start the process, right? I'm sure you have heard stories when they come to you and things just wrap up and they were like, oh, this was fairly easy than what I thought. I wish I would have started a year ago. So where do you think people get stuck before they even arrive and or make a phone call to you? Like, what do you think is the main thing that holds them back?
Well, for some people, it's emotional. They're just um, they're mourning the loss
Yes.
of a friend or a relative and
Mm-hmm.
loved one, and they're just having a hard time moving forward. And that's part of what I try and help do. It's as a licensed attorneys in Texas, we're allowed to call ourselves counselors,
Yes.
and I try and counsel these people, these people that are grieving, and to help them through the process and make it as easy on them as possible,
How
so
kind.
that we don't lose any momentum that we've had and can get it done.
How
Um,
kind.
I,
That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Because there are enough people out there who's all about business and get the work done. Um, it's more fulfilling when we're able to connect with another person on the other side and elevate a little bit of their pain. And, we are here to help each other and navigate this life together. So I appreciate the time that you take to slow down and be kind with them. Thank you.
think
Awesome. So, Jason, last but not the least, this question is very important to me. What is the one thing you think real estate professionals like me can do to make the life of families going through the probate process easier? Because I'm sure we come into the picture quite late, So, I would love to hear from you, from your experience with all the families.
Well, from what I understand, the kinds of things that you do for your people, Rosie, and that I've seen in a handful of other situations, and when I do, it's such a relief and a
Mm,
help. I think probably most real estate professionals are in the habit of placing a listing on the MLS and planting a
mhm.
sign in the yard and waiting for the phone to ring.
Yep.
Um, and that's never helpful, and
Yep.
especially during a probate, because
Hmm.
there's so much that needs to be done. There's so much that the family's doing with the death of their family member or friend, and if the real estate professional is not truly taking care of the sale of the house from you know beginning to end, and that's just not helpful. So
Yes.
a real estate professional dealing with probate hopefully is going to have um, handymen that are available to come and fix things that are broken. It's going to have a landscaper that's available to come and clean up the yard and
Hmm.
power wash the driveway and the sidewalk, and a painter that's going to come and touch up the paint,
Yep. Hmm.
and uh, some got junk removal company that's going to come and remove all the clutter and the junk, and somebody to steam clean the curtains and the carpet and just get the
Carpets.
house ready for sale. And if the
Yep.
real estate professional can do all of those things
Uh-huh.
for the executor, that is so incredibly helpful.
Yes, and that's exactly my goal. And Jason, I got to know about this work a little bit from a very different angle. I was called, and then I found out about all the holdups in the process. And after helping a couple of families and helping them save thousands of dollars, because sometimes families are not aware that if house is staying vacant, the insurance is not covering it after 30 days, and they're
Yeah.
not aware of how the property taxation works on the annual basis. All the exemptions can go away, and the same property that can yield equity can now be a huge cost to them.
Oh, yeah.
So and then speed to the process can be easily created by having a well-rounded professional who's not treating it as just like a person who wants to just stick sign in the yard and hope somebody buys it, but somebody who takes full ownership of the process and is well equipped as a team. And by doing few transactions with people, I just couldn't help. And I was like, you know what? If who we know makes other people's life better, then why not put them in touch with each other? And if we can have more impact, through our work rather than just earning a living, life is just a little bit more tasteful. So I'm just here to help people and make more friends and connections in this lifetime, so we can look back and say, you know what, we did our best, and rest is in his hands. So we all know we're here to help each other. And truly, Jason, if I don't have people like you that I can call and lean back on, then I'm not sure if I will be able to do my job either. So I thank you for being so diligent with your work.
Well, it's
Cool.
my pleasure.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
the opportunity.
Of course. Jason, on the closing note, is there anything else that you want to leave us with for people who are listening, and share your last thoughts?
Oh, have a will. Everyone needs to have a will. You might not think that you own enough, but everyone should have a will, including parents of graduating seniors, right, that have gone off to their freshman year of college, like my oldest.
Mhm.
Um, Once they turn age 18, they need a simple will, they need a financial power of attorney, and they need a medical power of attorney, because they're not our minor kids anymore.
They're not minor kids anymore. Yeah.
They're adults, supposedly, when they turn age 18.
Yes. How simple are these little nuggets of information and how big of a role they can play in our lifetimes? It's amazing to know that. So, Jason, thank you so much for your amazing time today, and for being such a value to us. And I look forward to helping many families with your help.
Look forward to working with you. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Andrea, we will be cutting here today. So the rest of the recording will be edited. Jason, thank you. That was amazing. Did you enjoy it? Do you feel like you got to say what's on your mind?
I think so.
Yeah,
I hope it sounded interesting. I
it
hope
was very good. I
my
loved
voice
it.
is coming through clearly.
No, very clear. I loved it. I think it's fantastic. So, Jason, since I have you now, I was working, like, as I send this out, I'm sure people are going to reach back and ask specific questions. Would you be open to, if it is received well and start working for us, maybe doing another like 15-minute now? And this was the intro one, so more of awareness around certain topics as people find themselves stuck, and you show up and say, hey, um, these are the solutions that how you can be prepared, so we can position ourselves as the industry leaders in this. Would you be
Sure,
open to that? Okay,
sure.
great. So, Jason, while I have you on the phone, I spoke with my client. It doesn't seem like their attorney had made contact, so I'm sending the email today. um,
Didn't even follow up.
Follow up, and that was my recommendation, so you can imagine how I'm looking right now. But I'm going to
Oh,
rebound from it. So I would love that. And I have two more scenarios that I wanted to put you in touch with today that came into my desk as this morning. I'm working with a family. I didn't know you work all over Texas, so I'm glad to hear that. So San Antonio, um, the father died without will to the daughter. Mother is in nursing home. We were like, okay, well, we can put you in, like, a AOH, affidavit of heirship, can be done if it's uncontested scenario. But most importantly, we don't know how much personal property is involved in this. There is real estate involved. The problem is, somebody at the nursing home said if she sells the house, Medicare will go away. And that I was got like, okay, what is our next step then? Like, how do we put you in touch with them, and how can they be helped?
yeah. They just need to call my office,
Okay.
and then my assistant Christine keeps my schedule and can
Okay.
schedule an appointment with me, and hopefully they're able to do video conference. That's my preference, but we can just do phone conferences as well.
Very good.
Uh, so father died without a will, survived by his wife and daughter. Okay. And is the daughter is her parents, the wife and so the decedent's wife, is she the mother of the child?
Yes.
Okay. And the property, do we know if it was community property or separate property?
I'm going to dig into more on that today. I first of all thought, since it's Medicare involved and what kind of income, I read your bio and it seemed like you did everything. I was like, I need to call Jason.
So
So,
so the issue is it's actually Medicaid. That's
okay,
the issue, not the Medicare.
Medicaid.
Uh, yeah. Um, the way I remember the difference is that Medicare's got an R in it, and that's for retirees.
Okay, Medicare for retirees, Medicaid. is something that you can get even if you're not 65?
Medicaid is for people that are poor.
Poor. Okay.
Which I mean, I don't mean to use a pejorative term, but it's for people that have very
Lower
limited,
income. Hmm.
very low income. You can't have more than $2,000 a month of income. You can't have more than $2,000 of assets, other
Hmm.
than a few things that are exempt. And one of those exempt things is the house. So your residence doesn't count to that $2,000 cap. And so that's why
Okay.
the person, and so Medicare for retirees does not pay for nursing homes.
Okay. So Medicaid does.
Medicaid does pay for nursing home care. Um, and without it, of course, nursing homes are extraordinarily expensive.
Mm.
And so that's why a lot of people go to, some effort to make sure that they qualify for Medicaid and they don't do anything that would mess
Mm.
it up, like selling the house. If you sell the
Is there a
house,
way around? Should I still be putting them in touch? Do you think you can still help them or guide them or they can be helped?
potentially help them get started. So Medicaid planning is an area of law that there are different kinds of specialists for.
Okay. Okay.
Um, for some reason, they don't call themselves Medicaid lawyers. They call themselves elder law lawyers.
Elder
Um,
law.
and it's like the family law attorneys. They should just call themselves divorce attorneys, right?
Exactly.
But
They would
instead,
probably would be searched easier online because I
yeah,
don't think anybody is searching for elder law lawyers. They're searching for Medicaid lawyers.
right.
Okay.
So, and there's not very many of them. There's probably 4 in Austin that do it. But they're in San Antonio, so there's probably 4 in San Antonio. But if that's what they need, I can put them in touch with those.
Because what I was thinking was that she went through this position with her dad already, right? And if mom is in already nursing home, my responsibility is to also be realistic. She might need a will and not go through this process if something happens to the mother in future. So I think in that perspective, in my brief conversation with Elizabeth, that seemed like something that she should explore. So I'm happy to
Yeah,
look more into it. Hmm?
yeah, I'll talk to her about it. It sounds like what they need is potentially an affidavit of heirship, like you mentioned earlier, for dad, and then mom could probably benefit from a transfer on death deed
Mm-hmm.
that will transfer the house automatically to the daughter when mom dies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the benefits of the TOD deeds is that it it avoids what's called the Medicaid Estate Recovery Program, or MERP. I don't know if you've run into that, but when someone is on Medicaid and they're in the nursing home and they have a house, the house isn't counted as a resource, but it's supposed to be sold at death. And then the proceeds are supposed to be used to pay the state back
Mm-hmm.
for all of the nursing home benefits. So it means that the kids might not get anything from the sale of the house because it's all supposed to go to the state.
So it's important that she protects her estate before anything happens to the mother then.
Correct. Because if there's a
Mm.
transfer on death deed, the house isn't subject to the MERP claim. It just
It's called a
automatically,
MARP claim? Wow.
yeah, it stands for Medicaid Estate Recovery Program, MERP. Um, because like I said, when someone dies owning a house that was on Medicaid, the the executor is required to give notice to the state, and then the state can file a claim. The state of Texas can file a claim against the estate, so that there's basically a lien on the house that has to be repaid when the house is sold.
So it seems like from your conversation that although they were not prepared for when father died, she's still early enough in the process that if she's having a conversation and open up her books and finances to you, you would be able to guide her and navigate what things she should be avoiding.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to have a conversation with this afternoon and I will make the email introduction. And Jason, my sincere apologies if people sometimes don't follow through. I will always nudge them along. So you can keep your focus on the ones that are responding. Rest, I will keep pushing from my side and help them
That's,
out, you know.
that sounds good. Believe me, I've got plenty to do.
I believe you. That's why I don't want you to ever bog down with people who are not as responsive, but that's my responsibility from our team side to keep them going. Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. Super excited. And I look forward to getting in touch with you soon again.
Great, Rosie. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.